Last weekend at Starbase, a 70-meter-tall rocket booster rolled out to the Starship launchpad. Booster 19, SpaceX's most powerful Super Heavy ever built, made its move. And what we saw was not at all what we expected. I have all the answers for you. I also did the math on a possible Flight 12 launch date, and Elon Musk confirmed it. Meanwhile, NASA is reworking the entire Artemis program. SLS, as it was, is no more. These decisions will shape human history forever. My name is Felix, welcome to What About It. Let's dive right in. Starship updates. Let's start at Massey's, because Ship 39 has had a genuinely impressive week. As of March 5th, it completed its 4th cryogenic test. 4 cryotests, and by all indications, the vehicle is performing well. But the bigger news this week isn't the cryo count, it's what else the stand confirmed. Flap movement was observed on Ship 39, with both the forward and the aft flaps visibly exercised during testing. This is significant because it visually confirms that SpaceX is actively using the new truss structure on the reworked static fire stand to perform structural tests on the flaps under real conditions. This isn't just a cryo test with a flap check bolted on. The stand was purpose-built to do this, and now we can see it working exactly as intended. Now, why does this matter so much? Here is my educated guess. SpaceX has already rolled Ship 39 back to the production site, announcing that the cryo-proof operations have concluded. Along with that announcement came an explanation as to why they articulated the flaps on the stand. Across several days, engineers tested the vehicle's redesigned propellant system and its structural strength, including squeeze tests to mimic the forces of future ship catches. What the new stand tests is the structural integrity of the flaps during a catch. But they also tested the aft flaps, so my guess is that the ship catch means the entire maneuver. A Starship swings from a horizontal skydiver position to a vertical landing burn and catch position very late during its approach. During this phase of the flight, extreme loads are present on both pairs of flaps. They swing back and forth to change the orientation of the ship, and that might be what SpaceX tested on the stand. What do you think? Are we on the right track, or do you have a different idea? Let me know in the comments. So, where does Ship 39 go from here? Let's walk through it together. Ship 39 is now back at the production site. SpaceX will analyze it and find out if cryo-proof tests and flap bending worked as planned. Once they deem it ready, it will roll out once more, this time on the thrust simulator stand. The thrust simulator stand uses hydraulic rams that press upward against the ship's thrust structure from below, simulating the force that the Raptor engines will actually produce during firing. Crucially, SpaceX runs cryo tests at the same time, loading the vehicle with propellant while the rams are pushing. The goal is to understand how the new version 3 design behaves under something close to actual flight conditions before a single engine is ever bolted on. That campaign will take roughly 3 to 4 days. Then the ship rolls back to Mega Bay 2 for engine installation, which is another 5 to 6 days of work. Then back out to Massey's for the static fire itself, another couple of days. Then one final return to Mega Bay 2 for pre-flight checkouts before it is ready for full stack with Booster 19. Yeah, I know, at this point Ship 39 will have made more trips between Mega Bay 2 and Massey's than most people make to the grocery store in a month. Here's the thing, NASA's SLS would never dream of this. Rolling the SLS takes days of preparation because you are moving the entire assembled rocket, plus the mobile launcher, on a crawler transporter at about a mile per hour. SpaceX can afford to roll back and forth repeatedly because they move the stages separately on self-propelled modular transporters. The process takes hours rather than days, and there is no pad involved in the move at all. It is a fundamentally different philosophy, and it is one of the reasons SpaceX can iterate this fast. Every single one of these trips has a purpose, and the process is working. Now let's do a realistic launch estimate, because that is the question everyone actually wants answered. If Ship 39 works through the post-cryoproof checks until March 16th, completes engine installation by around March 23rd, gets through static fire by around March 26th, and finishes final checkouts by early April, we are looking at a realistic full stack and launch window in the range of early to mid-April. And we're not alone in that math. Elon Musk posted on X last week with just a few words: Starship version 3 first flight in about 4 weeks. 4 weeks from now lands squarely in early April. Our estimate and his are pointing at exactly the same window. March launch? Probably not. But early April? Musk said it, we calculated it independently, and everything happening on the ground right now backs it up. You know what else is moving incredibly fast right now? AI is moving incredibly fast right now. And there's one platform that says it has already helped more than 10 million learners across 100+ countries understand how to actually work with these tools. It's called Outskill, and they're the sponsor of today's video. This weekend, they're hosting a live 2-day AI mastermind, about 16 hours total, running 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. Eastern Time on Saturday and Sunday, designed so people from different time zones can attend. The idea is to condense the experience of more than 100 AI practitioners, including people who've worked at companies like Nvidia and Microsoft, into a focused 2-day learning event. Outskill says their goal is to help people become AI independent, understand the rapid changes happening in the AI space, and ultimately increase their earning potential by applying these tools in real workflows. During the session, they cover things like building AI agents that can plan and execute and report tasks, automating workflows that run even while you sleep, connecting tools like Sheets, Notion, and others into real systems, and using AI to save hours of work every week. And if you attend both days, they are also including bonuses valued at around $5,000, such as an AI prompt Bible, a personalized AI toolkit builder, and a roadmap for building income opportunities with AI. When you register, you'll also get access to their AI survival hackbook, which focuses on major AI shifts currently happening. Outskill currently holds a 4.9 out of 5 rating on Trustpilot. If you're curious, you can check the link in the description or the pinned comment, and you can also join their WhatsApp community there to stay updated. Back to Starbase. While Ship 39 is working through its campaign at Massey's, Booster 19 hit a major milestone of its own last weekend. The booster transport stand was rolled in front of Megabay 1. That is the move you make when you're done with everything that needs to happen inside the building. And then it happened. Booster 19 rolled to Pad 2 in all its glory. Wait. Not all its glory. Even during the rollout, we already had an idea that something important was missing. The booster rolled down Highway 4 during the night, a truly epic sight. Grid fins installed, sitting on the transport stand, and propelled by SPMTs, it made its way to the staging area in front of Pad 2. And on Sunday, we all watched on the Y Live cameras together. The chopsticks went into their lifting position, grabbed Booster 19, and lifted it up. Oh wow, yeah, something was definitely missing. We counted 10 out of 33 Raptor 3 engines installed. What's interesting is the layout in which they were installed. 2 in the center, 4 in the middle ring, and another 4 in the outer ring. Taking a look at this layout from below shows the pattern. The positioning looks like it roughly cancels out the thrust. I can't simulate it, but it does look relatively even. Even enough to test them without inflicting too much asymmetric thrust on the hold-down clamps. SpaceX obviously isn't planning a standard static fire here. I talked about this on my X account on Sunday, and on Monday came the confirmation for what I had suspected. SpaceX will perform multiple different tests, likely including spin prime tests where they spool up the turbopumps only. They'll load the vehicle with propellant and exercise it, whatever that means. This doesn't even say for sure that we'll get to see a static fire. I'm hoping for it, and we won't have to wait long to find out. Things might be happening as you watch this episode, so make sure to check our live cams after this video. Here's a link for you. It is baffling to see how naked the booster is in the engine section. This is likely not missing many parts. All the engine shielding is gone thanks to SpaceX's design changes on the Raptor 3 engines. This saves a lot of weight and makes inspections and maintenance much easier. And those engines are ready, and more are coming. NSF's cameras at McGregor captured Raptor 3 engine number 107 passing the test site this week. Then engines 122 and 123 were spotted leaving the testing area. What this tells us is that the pipeline between engine manufacturing in Hawthorne and testing at McGregor is moving at full speed. Raptor 3 engines are being built, qualified, and cleared at a pace the program has never seen before, and that pipeline is what makes Flight 12 and the launches that follow it possible. If Ship 39's campaign proceeds on the schedule we just walked through, nothing should stand between now and Flight 12. The two timelines of Booster and Ship are converging. Quick update on Ship 40 before we move to the biggest launch site expansion in SpaceX's history. As seen on Avid Space's cameras, it is now structurally complete. Both aft flaps were installed this week, with the right flap moving in to finish the job. Full stack, both flaps on, Ship 40 is ready to begin its own outfitting process and work toward a cryo test campaign. The production pipeline keeps moving even while Ship 39 is still in testing. Now for something that I think deserves a lot more attention than it gets, the launch site expansion. The terrain across the entire expansion area is almost fully graded now. SpaceX moved enormous quantities of dirt across the salt flats, adding somewhere in the range of 60 to 80 centimeters of fill across the entire footprint to stabilize the ground. Geotextile fleece has been rolled out across large sections to lock that soil in place and minimize erosion. This is serious civil engineering work, and it has happened fast. The eastern portion of the expansion area is getting particular attention right now. According to the released site plan and full parcel layout document, this is where the new Pad 1 staging area and the LNG liquefaction plant will be situated. The amount of preparation work already underway in that specific zone tells you SpaceX is not treating this as a future consideration. They're building it right now. Over at Pad 1 itself, construction is accelerating. Sheet piles have been driven into one side of the new flame trench, and work has begun on the other side. An auger is actively working in the area where the trench will sit, and an excavator has started removing soil. Here's something that gives you a real sense of the challenge. The growing excavation hole is filling with water. When you're building a below-grade flame trench this close to the Gulf, you are fighting a high water table the entire time, and likely brackish water at that. It is a significant construction challenge, and SpaceX is working through it. All this isn't possible without an aerial view. If you want to see how SpaceX is doing at Starbase from the air just like Jordan does, visit redlineheli.com/Felix. $25 off for anyone using the link. The Redline helicopter team will show you the same Starbase views our photographer gets on his Starbase flights. Incredible views. And here's the detail that really signals the pace of this program. Cameras at the site spotted structural steel for Pad 1's ground support equipment bunker arriving and being staged at the launch site. SpaceX isn't waiting for the concrete pad to be poured and cured before thinking about the frame. The steel is already there, ready to go the moment the concrete is ready. That kind of parallel execution is how you compress a construction timeline significantly. The goal, based on everything we can observe, is to have Pad 1 fully refurbished and operational using the same modern design already visible on Pad 2 before the end of this year. And why does that matter? I'll explain exactly why the timing of Pad 1 is critically important for what comes next. And then there is Kennedy Space Center. Cameras at KSC caught Starship launch tower segments rolling past the vehicle assembly building and heading towards Slick 37, where SpaceX is constructing yet another Starship launch tower. Multiple segments have been spotted making this move in recent days. One pass included Module 9 along with an SQD arm extension rolling ahead of it. Slick 37 is set to receive at least 2 towers. 2, at a site that is also building out the ground support infrastructure in parallel. SpaceX is not building a launch program, they are building a launch network. Starbase in South Texas, Slick 37 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, and of course Pad 39A at the neighboring Kennedy Space Center. Each site a fully operational Starship facility. The pace of all of this, the site expansion, the flame trench construction, the tower segments rolling to KSC, it is easy to look at any one of these individually and miss what they add up to together. What they add up to is an entirely new chapter of the space industry being built simultaneously across multiple locations right now. Hey, thank you from the bottom of my heart for watching and liking this video. If you're part of the 40% that hasn't subscribed yet, it would mean the world to me if you did. It's free, and it genuinely helps more people find my channel to spread the word about spaceflight. Want to make my world even easier? There's only one place you'd rather be, the Y Members Club on Patreon and right here on YouTube. Click the card or the join button right here under the video. You are the reason why we keep doing this. Thank you so much, you rock. Now here comes the part I mentioned earlier. Why is SpaceX speeding up with these pads like crazy? One reason is this. NASA has completely rewritten its plan for returning astronauts to the moon. The strangest part is this. The mission that was supposed to land astronauts on the moon won't go there anymore. Instead, NASA inserted an entirely new mission into the Artemis program. The agency believes this could actually accelerate the US in the new lunar space race. The landing that was originally planned for Artemis 3 has now moved to Artemis 4. But the first landing of the Artemis era is still targeted for early 2028. So what exactly changed? Why insert a new mission into the program, and can NASA really pull off 2 lunar missions in a single year? Let's start with the mission sequence itself. For years, the Artemis plan looked fairly straightforward. Artemis 1 would test Orion with a crew. Artemis 2 would send astronauts around the moon, and Artemis 3 would attempt the first lunar landing since 1972. Astronauts would launch aboard the Orion spacecraft on NASA's SLS. After reaching lunar orbit, they would transfer to a commercial lunar lander developed either by SpaceX or by Blue Origin and descend to the surface. But NASA realized something uncomfortable. Artemis 3 is trying to do far too many new things all at once. Landing on the moon is all but routine. Artemis is dramatically different from Apollo. Put yourself in the shoes of the astronauts who will be the first to attempt this since the 1970s. You're going into unknown territory, the harder to reach lunar South Pole. You're traveling to the moon in a new spacecraft that has only flown a few times, and that is just the start of it. The mission depends on brand new lunar landers, brand new spacesuits, complex docking operations in lunar orbit, and on the lander side, a new capability: large-scale orbital propellant transfer. NASA's safety advisors warned that stacking so many first-time technologies into a single mission posed a significant risk. So the agency changed the plan. Instead of attempting the landing immediately after Artemis 2, NASA inserted what is essentially a full-scale rehearsal. Artemis 3 will still launch astronauts aboard Orion on SLS, but instead of heading for the moon, the spacecraft will remain in low Earth orbit. There, the astronauts will rendezvous and dock with the commercial lunar landers being developed for the Artemis program. On one side is SpaceX's Starship-based human landing system. On the other hand is Blue Origin's Blue Moon lander. During Artemis 3, the crew will test the docking systems, life support integration, crew transfer, and the new lunar spacesuits. But they will not go to the moon. Instead, the actual landing moves to Artemis 4. Artemis 5 would then follow with another landing later in the same year. In other words, NASA inserted an entirely new test mission into the sequence and sped things up significantly. No matter what headlines you read in the past few days from traditional media, the landing itself is not cancelled. It is not even delayed. That extra mission has a very specific purpose: reducing risk. Artemis is all about that next giant leap, staying on the moon and not just visiting. NASA has used this strategy before. During the Apollo program, engineers flew a mission in Earth orbit to test the lunar module and docking procedures before attempting a landing. That mission was Apollo 9. Apollo 10 followed with tests in lunar orbit. Only after these rehearsals did astronauts attempt the historic moon landing on Apollo 11. NASA hopes Artemis 3 will play a similar role, but here's a twist. Restructuring the mission timeline wasn't the only radical change. At the same time, NASA quietly cancelled one of the biggest upgrades planned for its giant SLS rocket. The rocket was originally supposed to evolve into a more powerful configuration known as Block 1B and later even a Block 2 variant. These versions relied on a brand new rocket stage called the Exploration Upper Stage, or EUS, dramatically increasing the rocket's payload capability. But the project ran into serious schedule delays and rising costs. Over the last decades, this has been symptomatic of many, if not most, NASA projects. The new culture being built up by Administrator Isaacman is actively seeking to turn this around. Finally, after nearly a decade of development, the stage still hadn't reached full production. It was supposed to fly in 2021. Instead, only a test build is available at the moment. So NASA made a pragmatic decision. Instead of continuing development, the agency plans to standardize SLS launches around a simpler configuration using a commercially derived upper stage. The choice fell on the Centaur 5 stage built by United Launch Alliance. Centaur 5 already flies on ULA's Vulcan rocket and is in active production. Now it will be a part of at least Artemis 4 and 5. By adapting it for SLS, NASA relies on existing hardware rather than continuing a costly development program. But the decision comes with trade-offs. The cancelled Exploration Upper Stage would have significantly increased SLS's power. It would have allowed the rocket to launch Orion together with additional payloads, including components of the planned lunar gateway. I do think that the gateway station is cancelled as well, by the way. It would make sense. Centaur 5 is smaller and less powerful. That means the rocket will still be capable of sending Orion and astronauts towards the moon, but it will simply not be able to carry large co-manifested payloads at the same time. NASA is prioritizing reliability and schedule stability over maximum performance. And there may be another argument for that decision. The commercial lunar landers themselves will have significant payload capacity. SpaceX's Starship-based lander in particular could carry large amounts of cargo to the lunar surface. The Artemis program's updated approach appears to finally address a long-neglected problem. SLS and everything surrounding it is too expensive, almost a decade late, and not capable enough to achieve the goal. It almost feels like NASA is chopping off a leg to get out of a trap. Now we arrive at the biggest question surrounding the new Artemis plan. Can NASA actually achieve the launch cadence it is now promising? Under the revised schedule, Artemis 3 would fly in 2027 as the Earth orbit test mission. Artemis 4 would attempt the first lunar landing in early 2028, and Artemis 5 would follow with another landing before the end of the same year. Yeah, you heard that right. 2 lunar missions in 1 year. The same year Artemis lands for the first time. That would represent a dramatic acceleration for the Artemis program. Artemis 1 launched in late 2022 and sent an uncrewed Orion capsule around the moon. The next mission, Artemis 2, is currently targeting a launch in April this year, 2026. That means more than 3 years between the program's first 2 flights. To reach the new goal, NASA would need to compress its timeline dramatically. The agency will have to build rockets faster, prepare spacecraft more quickly, and process launches at a much higher tempo than it has demonstrated so far. And then there is the Mobile Launcher 2, which is, or rather was, still under construction. It simply became obsolete. With the future SLS development taking an alternative route, it will not be required. This thing has already cost more than $1.5 billion. And it is not complete yet. Off with its head. And then there are the lunar landers themselves. SpaceX's HLS Starship is still in development, and several key technologies, especially orbital propellant transfer, have yet to be demonstrated. But it's received only $4.1 billion and won't cost more, no matter how long it takes. For everything, including the pad. Blue Origin's Blue Moon lander is also still in development, and far less is publicly known about its progress. For the 2028 landing schedule to work, at least one of these landers will need to complete successful test missions within the next year or so. And before you get the pitchforks ready over $4.1 billion for an HLS Starship or Blue Moon, consider this. SLS, Orion, ground equipment, the Mobile Launcher 2, and the Lunar Gateway Station combined are approaching, drumroll please, $72 billion so far. It is hard to get exact numbers, but that's a reasonably close approximation. 1 SLS launch so far, no operational gateway station, no functioning EUS, no finished Mobile Launcher 2, and an Orion capsule with heat shield problems. $72 billion. Whether the new plan is actually achievable remains an open question. Dare I say, it might even show that SLS isn't the right launcher for NASA's updated ambition either. Over the next few years, NASA must prove something important. That it can either fly that hardware often enough to make the new plan work, or that they are willing to change even more and make the move to book launches with commercial providers. If the agency succeeds, astronauts could once again walk and maybe even work on the lunar surface before the decade ends. With Isaacman willing to make some radical changes, I am more hopeful for Artemis than I ever was. Jared, you rock. And that's it for today. Smash the like button, subscribe for more. This is what fuels the algorithm, and this is how you can help us for free. Check out our epic shirts in your favorite Space Nerd store, our brand new Raptor emblem design, and countless others are there for you to explore. Click the card or the US or worldwide link in the description. And if you want to know how SpaceX is planning to build a base on the moon, watch this video next to continue your journey. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again in the next episode.